Hi everyone, just take a quick look at the solution for assignment 8 and make sure you have a decent idea what we're trying to do in regards to arrays for this week. This assignment was rainfall statistics. So you're going to collect rainfall for every month of the year. You're going to create an array to store the rainfall for each month. You are to collect each month's rainfall by using an input box. Validate each entry to ensure it's numeric and greater than 0 or greater. Okay. And 0 or greater, I can read. Then we're going to list each month and its rainfall in the list box as you collect it. And then there's going to be a statistics button that we're going to look at, and we're going to process the array to walk through to figure out what the total rainfall is for the year, the month with the most rainfall, the month with the average rainfall, and the month with the least rainfall. Okay, and so in the summary, your form should have a couple list boxes. One to display the input and one to display the output, a button to begin the input process, and a button to calculate the show statistics. Okay, so not too bad. So let's go ahead and see how I went ahead and did this. Let's go ahead and look at my design. I just put a couple of list boxes here, one for the rainfall, one for the statistics, and the 3 buttons, and I had an exit button in there also. Once again, make sure you put a name up there called rainfall statistics, okay? And so with that said, let's get in here. And so what I was going to do is the first part, the rainfall, would be the part that we actually collected. I created an array. Oh, I have that there. I created an array for 11. It's not 11, right? It's 12 because everything starts with 0. So with 12 entities in it, for each month, it's going to collect the rainfall. On my click, I just have get and validate input. So I kept it modular, but for the most part, there's not much to this. And so we'll kind of look at it this way, okay? So we'll look at this and say, we'll look at this and see, I declared an input, a DVL input number, a validation, and so on. You know, I'll show you how I validated here. It's kind of weird, but you'll get the idea. I did a for next slope, okay, that I'm going to go through for the rainfall length, the length of my rainfall array right here. Okay, so I'm going to loop through this 12 times to ensure that I actually validated. How I validated this is a little bit different when it comes to an input box. You know, input boxes are interesting, and it works in this particular case. I don't use them very often. Very, very rarely do I use them. However, if you do have an input box, you just can't simply say there's a problem and send it back to the form and fix it. You almost got to loop through it and tell them to try again. And so in this case here, I'm going to use what's called, I'm going to do until it's validated, a try and a catch, okay? And what this try catch is, we're going to get into this a little bit more, especially when we get into databases, is the ability for the program to try this stuff. And if it absolutely abnormally ends the program, it will fall to the catch here. Instead of it abnormally ending the program, it'll fall right here. You'll see that we'll have false. So what do I mean by that? Well, if I sat back and I took this input box and I put bad data in here, like A, B, C, D, and I tried to move that to a DBL input number, that's a double, right? And as a double, it would abnormally end because we can't move A, B, C, D to a double variable, correct? So it would abnormally end. With that said, it would fall to this piece right here. Now, you may be asking, okay, Bob, well, how about how about the 0 and above? You know, I actually didn't do that. So in this case, this is going to take care of my numeric piece and my existence. Then I probably would need to sit back and say if DBL input number is greater than 0, then. And then everything else here, let's go ahead and take this out, would fall under this, right? And I'm going to put an NDIF right here. Whoops, I can spell. There you go. NDIF right there, okay? And so what's going to happen is it's not going to go to true. Let's see, where are we here? In this case, it will go say it false. This is going to go true. And so if it's greater than 0, we finally is going to take it to true. If it falls to here, nothing's going to happen. It'll say it's false, okay? And it will loop back around again, allowing us to try it one more time. Does that make sense? All right, so that's what we're going to be doing until we actually set this thing to true. So this will allow me to do this piece right here. So if it's not greater than 0, and so on. And I could go ahead and put a message box. I could sit back and see if it's greater than 0 is good. I could put a message box if I wanted to and say box.show and say, rainfall must be greater than 0. I say that now. Is that really what we wanted? Let's look at this one more time. Let's see. Uh, 0 or greater. Okay, so 0 or greater. So I could say if it's greater than or equal to this. Okay, so I can say greater than or equal to 0. There you go. All right. So the try catch kind of works really well. You could have grabbed it and did it. You could have done this a couple different ways. I just wanted to show you this try catch to see if you understood that. And again, we'll probably cover that a little bit later on in more detail as we get into databases. But for right now, it's not that hard. All it's doing is trying a certain amount of code. And if it's bad, if it throws an exception, I should say, like this would do, if it's a bad data, it will go to the catch piece right here. So it's kind of a neat way of validation in a way. Okay. So what did I do here? So I went ahead and if everything is good, I went ahead and put that number that we got off my input box and stuck it in my rainfall with the very first index. And my very first index would be 0. That's what int index equals 0 to be. Okay. Unfortunately, I had to figure out what month it is because I wanted to print this thing out on the other side, not print it out, but display it out on what month we're doing. And so I had to do a case. I did a case on the index. The case, if my index is 0, it's January, February, March, April, May, June, July. So it'd be interesting to see how you guys accomplish this. Okay. If that was frustrating to you, that's what we're going to cover this week. Maybe some of you are already ahead of the game and figured out another way of doing it. But we will talk about this a little bit this week to eliminate these if conditions to deal with this, okay? But for the most part, this is how I did it. If you did if conditions, that's fine. I did a case struct, select case. Once again, kind of an easy way to do a conditional statement, especially in this case where we're just looking at the index. Make sense? So let's watch that work real fast. Add that code, more likely it's going to break on me now. And let's see. Right here. So if I added rainfall, and so if I put 10, you'll see rainfall for January is 10, 20, 30, 40, 20, 25, or whatever I just put in there, and then kind of keep going. Okay, boom. August, September. Oh, that was a bad one because I had a negative 50 or something bad in there. And so you see it didn't really allow me to put that in there because it wasn't good data. There you go. And there you go. All right. So we have them all in there. Rainfall for each month. Pretty cool, right? So what I did is I put that into an array. Now, obviously, what we could have done instead of an array is we could have had 12 more. We could have had 12 variables, correct? We could have added 12 variables to it and just had one for January, February, all the way through December, and then compared them all. Well, the array makes things a little bit easier, especially when we're dealing with statistics, right? And so my statistics in this case is total rainfall is 398 inches. I think we're going to take my word for it on this. Okay, let's see, I got a 3 and a 5, so there's the 8, so you can kind of get there. My average rainfall is 13. My most rainfall is 50 inches. August had that, and there's 50. There were some ties in there, but I'm not really dealing with ties in my code. So August, we'll say, had 50. And my least was 10 inches in January, so it looks like my program worked pretty well. Okay, so let's go in and look at the second piece of this. Once again, statistics-wise, what did I need to do? Well, in this case, what I needed to do was I needed to sit back and I have my statistics. And I'm going to figure out my total rainfall, okay, my average rainfall, my most rainfall amount, and my month of my most rainfall, and my least rainfall amount, and my month of my least rainfall. And I went ahead and did a few procedures and functions to do that. First, calculate rainfall. Pretty darn easy, especially with an array, correct? So with an array, all I really needed to do was for index 0 to dBl rainfall length, okay, again, -1 because we have 11, my index has to be 11 for my 12th entry, right? And then I just went ahead and added it all through and brought it back. Pretty simple, correct? Pretty simple. My average rainfall, that was actually pretty easy because what all I did was took my total that I had and I called it down and I just divided it by 12. So that was an actual a real easy one. Okay. And so hopefully that was easy for you also. All I did was pass down my total that I got from my previous function and pass it down and return back and divide by 12. That's almost cheating, correct? Hopefully you made it that easy too. My one with the most, so it gets a little bit more complicated with this, but not really. The problem is that once again I got to figure out the month, right? And so I kind of copied my code that I had before, but in this case, all I really did was is I compared my DBL most rainfall and made sure my in whatever is greater. So the first time in, this is 0, and I looked at January. And if it's greater than this, I replace January's rainfall with this, and I set my STR most rainfall to January because my index would be 0. You see that? And it would loop back around again, and it basically keeps doing that. So if May is greater than January, it would, but my index will reflect that because I know May would be index 4, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Does that make sense? Okay. So hopefully you saw with this little problem the first time you played with arrays, how it did make it a little bit more efficient. If you're sitting back going, yeah, but dear God, we had to copy this type of code here 3 times. I agree with you. I don't like that at all. Is there a better way? Well, of course there is. There's always a better way. And that's what you're going to learn next.